Yes, my name is Robert Varney. I graduated in 2020. Now I've been working and making art over the past year.
You participated in our 2020 annual student exhibition, um, which, as you know, coincided with the beginning of a global pandemic, so it didn't totally turn out how we wanted it to. But I'm curious how you felt about that experience, like showing your work virtually. You didn't get to have the traditional like senior thesis show.
Going back to like April 2020, so like a year ago, we found out that the show wouldn't be happening. And I mean, everyone was scrambling to figure out all these changes that are going to happen in classes and critiques and all that. Finding out that the show wasn't going to happen, even though we kind of knew it wasn't. It was a lot at the time just to not have that to look forward to. I was really happy with how like everything else came out. How you guys made it a virtual space and had the interviews in with our art, and it was really well done.
Can you just briefly share for people that don't know what you included in the 2020 show? Like what, I don't know, an elevator pitch of the work that you shared last year.
So these images were taken between December and the end of February, before the pandemic kind of like officially started in the US. They were images of my grandmother's house, and they were paired with a interview that I did with her, basically her explaining or she was explaining her experience with Alzheimer's that my grandfather suffered with, and kind of seeing the relationships between those experiences and the environment that she was living in.
So did you see that as sort of like, I know you have an interest in like documentary style photography, like did you see that as an extension of that interest?
Yeah, in kind of a like I've kind of discovered that interest in empty spaces that were once inhabited,
Mm-hmm.
which like going back to my early work, I loved going into abandoned places and taking pictures. And I think that kind of line of thinking and line of work actually somehow carried into my documentary work.
So I know that after you graduated, you went on a road trip that you had been planning for a long time. So I'm hoping you'll talk about that. But
Yeah,
I think it's interesting that you embarked on that road trip during a pandemic, and I'm sure you were shooting a lot of places that were formerly inhabited and weren't, just because of the circumstances that we were all living through.
I definitely chose a very weird time to go on a road trip. That being said, though, yeah, like a lot of the places I was in were mostly rural,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like definitely one town to another, one state to another. There were completely different approaches to handling the pandemic, and some states you wouldn't have even known that there was a pandemic going on. um,
Wow.
Actually seemed to seek people out while I was on that trip. So instead of finding places that they weren't, I was like finding places that they were. And thankfully, I got very lucky.
Yeah. Well, can you speak about that more?
Yeah, I guess I was very lonely. So the longest I went without talking to another person was like 4 days. And after those 4 days, I was like, okay, I need to socialize more. And that really led to a lot of great experiences, like just random people traveling, or just this one couple invited me over for dinner on their houseboat. It was
Oh, that's
bizarre,
awesome.
but wonderful. Yeah. I think like after that trip in general, I was somewhat hopeful with humanity instead of like the opposite, which
That's good. That's a beautiful thing.
I don't think I had a bad experience meeting anyone on that trip, which is like obviously like partially a privilege that I can move through the country without having the likelihood of certain experiences happening to me. But it was really nice to be able to say that at the end.
So can you talk a little bit about what were you taking photos of on your trip? Has anything developed from that since then? Did you find a new interest, a new subject that you enjoyed photographing?
So I took a lot of pictures on film and got them all developed and printed them out onto some like cheap CVS 5x7 cards. So I've been sorting through those recently. Now that I've had some distance from taking them.
Yeah.
And also I have I gave people postcards when I was driving around, and just like the stories that people would write in, like I'd hand these out just to anyone I meet, are hilarious. I've had the luck of meeting a husband of an elementary school teacher who was able to facilitate me giving this school a bunch of these cards to fill out and send in.
Awesome.
And reading the stories from all these like kids' perspectives is like both like very entertaining, but also they're experiencing everything that we are, regardless of their understanding of the events that unfolded. So, but the one that I pulled off the top is one about a pregnant cat from Taya in 8th grade. And during quarantine, my cat got pregnant. The night she was due, I stayed up with her the whole time, and she didn't give birth till the morning. And when the 4th and final kitten came, he came out dead, but I was able to revive him, and he sleeps with me every night. His name is Twinkie. And that's such a sweet, like,
Wow.
just little things like that. Or
that one's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Wow.
I took a lot of pictures of churches, which I don't know, like there seemed to be just a lot of interesting signs, and you know how like the little letter squares that you line up, not getting too philosophical, like so much free will.
Yeah.
But it looks so official. So like there were a lot of interesting signs like that on my trip. I tried to take as many portraits of people as I could.
Yeah.
Which was just a really good experience in general, because it kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone with documenting and such.
So what's next for you for your art? Are you taking a break from it right now? Do you have plans? Are you just taking your camera out?
Like I find myself still shooting occasionally for this project.
Yeah.
I've definitely taken a break, because that trip, by the end of it, I was really burnt out
Sure.
from like making pictures and just traveling and everything. And I don't quite know what I want to do next. So right now it's just been kind of a break from art, I guess, but still working on this in the background. So
Advice for art makers who have just graduated.
I can't sustain myself on my art yet, and that's okay. Just being okay with that. And my goal this year is just to get into a art related field, and whether that's making crates for shipping art or spackling holes in a gallery, just so that way I can still support myself through making art until that eventuality may occur. But don't put too much pressure on yourself, because like if you haven't made art in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, not a reflection of you as an artist. And even if you were not making art, you still are an artist. And that's something that you can work on in little things, whether it's like mastering making an omelet or hanging a picture on your wall in your bedroom or something. Art doesn't have to be those large projects that are very intimidating to take on.
Thank you so much for talking with me. It was really great to catch up, and I look forward to seeing what you make next.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great to be talking with you.
didn't think she was gonna say that. Did you
Should
hear
I
that
continue? Well, yeah.
too? I didn't do that before.
It's been a minute.
Months
Yeah.
since we last spoke. So when we last talked, you were about to leave for Alaska for is it a contract job or
Yeah. So I took a contract for a carpentry position up here, and then I decided to extend my contract into a guide role where I'm actually like leading tours and stuff like that.
oh cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're only gonna be there for the summer and now I assume you're gonna be there longer. Is it like a permanent thing or
I don't see it being a permanent thing.
yeah.
Um, just because my family's really far away, so which has been hard. It's like missing out on stuff that you want to be there for. I don't think I'll move back to the East Coast, but I'll at least be closer, so I can make those trips more often and not worry about money as much.
But could you give me some more details about what you've been like what you did over the summer and now what you're doing leading tours?
Yeah, totally. So over the summer, I guess let me kind of like just give a little bit of background on where I work so it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
please.
I work for a place called Borealis Basecamp, and they're a adventure eco lodge resort type thing.
Mhm.
So the resort is completely off grid, and well, soon to be on power grid, but that's a whole other story. Um, so basically, I was building platforms for these what we call igloos. They're just fiberglass domes to sit on top of, and it was just a lot of lifting heavy pieces of wood and screwing things together in certain orders and all that fun stuff. So
Mhm. Did you were you trained for that position or did you just kind of go into it with the skills you already had?
I got hired with the skills I already had,
Yeah.
and a pretty beginner carpenter. Like I just have always like worked with wood in general
Mhm.
on the side. So like I had some skills, but definitely was a on the job training type thing.
And now you're leading tours?
Yeah, so I'm leading people on a 1 hour or up to a 6 hour tour.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, 6 hours.
yeah, so yeah, that one's a long one. But essentially driving ATVs or guests ride in what's called a UTV or a Polaris Razor is the brand that we use. Um, but they're little 4-wheel drive vehicles that go fast over bumpy terrain. So
Oh, fun. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
So wow, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm thinking like museum tours. Like you're
well,
like
it's like
literally
a museum tour, but I do get to stop and like give little talks and stuff like that about different things in the either environment or I got to talk about the Alaskan pipeline, which is like not like the most green thing in the world, but it's a really interesting
yeah, yeah.
engineering, engineering piece in general. So,
What's the closest town to you? Or like major
so
I know that I don't know like if major city is a thing in Alaska, but
yeah, major city, Fairbanks with a population of I think 30,000.
okay.
It's a pretty small town
Yeah,
for being a major city.
sure.
It's but yeah, nearest grocery store is an hour away from me where I'm at.
Oh, it really is the last frontier.
It really is in many ways. They've had this place running for the last 5 years, and they're just getting grid power out here um, in the next week or so, which is amazing.
When you were a student worker at the museum, you worked with the preparators very
Mhm.
closely. Um, and do you feel like that benefited you at this position you're in right now?
Yes, like I definitely working with preparators as well as like occasionally doing tours and stuff like that has definitely been like my little foot in the door.
Mhm.
It's been a blessing and a curse in a way because like when you're working in a museum, there's this really, really high bar, and I appreciate that bar because I like making good work
Yeah.
and being detail oriented and stuff like that. And this summer has actually been an exercise in the opposite of that, which, like, not in the sense that I'm making bad work, but just knowing when you need to be super accurate and when being like a quarter of an inch off isn't gonna be a huge issue type thing. It still bothers me when I don't do my best work, but like being able to separate myself from the conditions I have to work in sometimes, where it's like you have to get something done under a certain period of time, and there's just no way to do it the way you want to do it. Letting go of the reins on some things.
I feel like that happened at the museum sometimes. Like sometimes
Yeah,
you'd have to rig something and it's not perfect, but I got the job done and that's what matters.
exactly. Yeah, it's amazing what you can hide underneath paint and
Mhm.
caulk and all that.
So do you see yourself continuing to, I don't know, continuing with this trade, like this line of work, like carpentry, or I know you were always interested in photojournalism. Is that still something that you want to pursue?
Honestly, like this job has like not in a bad way, like made me rethink my interests and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I definitely am gonna keep working with my hands in one way or another.
Yeah.
Um, I don't see photojournalism in like the media sense of it being something that I really want to do
Yeah.
because I feel like it does put those reins on projects that make you not want to do it the way that
Yeah.
you want to do it.
Yeah.
Way. So,
Certain
you
constraint
know what I'm
for
saying?
sure.
Yeah, restraint. Yeah. So like I could see myself doing photojournalism based projects, but maybe not the short turnaround type.
What about museum work?
Museum work, I definitely could see that being something in the future that I get back into because I'd really enjoy just like building even just like the walls of an exhibition type thing, like
Hmm.
trying to make a space that's very immersive for people. And I think that's it's a fun way of thinking and kind of using my brain. So
Yeah. I almost feel like that extends to what you're doing right now. I mean, people are traveling there to immerse themselves in a certain kind of experience, right?
yeah, totally. Yeah. In guiding, that's definitely part of it where like
Mhm.
you're immersing them in this kind of environment where they're not familiar with. So you're kind of being that conduit for them.
I just wanted to get like a general idea of what you're doing now and your plans. What's next?
My what's next right now is I'm building a camper for my truck. So that'll be my future home on wheels for whatever I'm doing next.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a little cap with a like a rooftop tent that pops up like a wedge.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's yeah, it's gonna be. I have 95% of all the materials here, and that's like the hard part is getting everything together. So I
Hmm.
mean, and building it, but
Yeah.
I'm racing winter right now, which is coming in quick.
Oh, I
So
bet. I've heard rough things about Alaskan winters.
in what's today's date? 7th, and within 6 weeks it'll be hitting zero. So that's
Stop.
gonna be
That's awesome.
yeah.
You have to get Junie a jacket.
I have a little jacket for her. I'm gonna have to get her a Canada Goose one. Like
Well, thank you so much for catching up with us, Rob. I really
yeah,
appreciate it.
I'll keep you guys updated.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll see you.